I met my limit, so that's it.
You sure you want to be here?
Yes, I do.
Are you absolutely sure?
I'm positive.
Whatever you have to do, just find an excuse to win. Keep going.
It pays to be aware.
Bring on the rain. Bring on the thunder, bring on the rain. Team deathmatch. I heard a story about a man, somewhat of a legend, rushing there strong in the battle, no matter the weapon. You can go to the campus, but you're gonna regret it when you get a boom like an angel is screaming from heaven. The game has just begun, it's about to rain more. Trying to get revenge, but you're running through the same door, laying on the same floor, dying like a newbie saw. Even if you're over there, bunny hopping his claymore. Bring on the thunder, bring on the rain. Put the fear in your mind, let it ride through your veins. A hungry little beast, and he's out the cave. When they see him, better back away. Bring on the thunder, bring on the rain. Face the winds of a hurricane, it's not the same. If you're not on this level, better get out the way. When you hear that thunder ray, in the lobby you see him, legend of thunder. Second chance and go cause you need him, he got your number. You know he's rocking puppies, defusing with chopper gun. So you're already thinking of places you hide under. But you never say, so get to digging your grave. Through the wrath of an AK, picking you up as it sprays. When a grenade covered in clay hit your face. Full sway, try to get away, but not today, huh? You can hide in the corner sending out bomb sprays. Even though you know it's annoying, he will still come and destroy ya. Mull you over and take control of all that you hold. And scavenge, reloaded, Jordan, blowing holes in your leave you broken. And there's no home for your bro, man, a dashboard. If you want, you can have more. You're mad cause you can't score. Go back to your ground war, rocket launchers and campers galore. KD is rising, but you cannot hang with the big boys. Bring on the thunder, bring on the rain. Put the fear in your mind, let it ride through your veins. A hungry little beast, and he's out the cave. When you see him, better back away. Bring on the thunder, bring on the rain. Face the winds of a hurricane, it's not the same. If you're not on this level, better get out the way. When you hear that thunder ray, you hear that chopper coming to gun you down. Hit you when you're spawning, you're screaming launch, I can save you now. Running the building, the Kurds coming to sniff you out. Puppies are hungry and the favorite flavor is still clown. He's like an artist, the rap with his paintbrush. Create with the same studs and guns with insane bloods. The ace in a straight flush, he's on top of them all, no contender. Another rapper never surrender, you will remember. Soviet push, rookie find a hole and crawl in the back against the wall, but you're still about to fall. When the thunder and rain descends upon you, you claim the very blood in your veins. Kill fetus and filled with his name. It's been a minute, you haven't seen him, the coast is clear, but then your body begins to shake from the sound you hear. Here coming enemy nuke, the hand of Zeus is coming down to claim you. Bring on the thunder, bring on the rain. Put the fear in your mind, let it ride through your veins. A hungry little beast, and he's out the cave. When you see him, better back away. Bring on the thunder, bring on the rain. Face the winds of a hurricane, it's not the same. If you're not on this level, better get out the way. When you hear that thunder ray, thunderstruck, leaving his mark upon your soul. Bang, thunderstruck, leaving his mark upon your soul. Bang, thunderstruck, leaving his mark upon your soul. Bang, thunderstruck, leaving his mark upon your soul.
United States Navy Thunder, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Cold War Radio, live on our home base, WAAR. We are America Radio, your number one source for streaming political and government talk anywhere. I am Hutch Bailey Jr., deep down in the bunker in my Smith & Wesson studio in the city of Pittsburgh, and aim your sights west of Murmansk, Russia, with a Finnish and Swedish buffer in between. Let's welcome, just back from vacation, Radio Norway. Come in, Radio Norway.
Actually, I'm still on vacation, Hutch, but
you get those good long vacations. Get those good long ones. That's outstanding. Follow me on Spreaker, ladies and gentlemen. Like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Cold War Radio, 2 A's in war. You can catch the show on Blueberry, Roku, YouTube, iHeartRadio. There is a free Cold War Radio app in your app store. The email, hutch@steelcityresistance.com, and the Cold War Radio patron hotline is 412-567-1460. It will be open tonight Chat room is up on Spreaker. Go to steelcityresistance.com. Catch the show notes, links. Become a Cold War Radio patron in the right-hand margin. You can let us know what we're worth for a month. You can change it at any time, raise it, lower it, end it, however you want to do it. You can send mail to Hutch Bailey Jr., P.O. Box 96022, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 15226. Norway, I want to hear how your vacation is going first and foremost.
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. And I've been quite lucky with the weather as well, because the summer has been quite rainy and cold. But what do you know? We have a sort of an Indian summer now with... it's been mostly sunny and lots of fish, and I mean the freezers are absolutely filled to the brim now with mainly salmon, but also a few trouts, which is my favorite. So I couldn't ask for more.
So I guess you're talking about steelhead, the big trout?
It's what we call creek trout here, but you know, it's a mix because some of these trouts they go into the sea and they come back and they have this nice shiny silvery color to them. So they're quite like salmon in their appearance. But I find the trout a little bit more juicy, a little bit more fatty, which is really good when we're approaching the winter months. So trout is my favorite, but of course the salmon is really, really nice as well.
That's outstanding. Now, the only salmon fishing that I've done is when they're actually running up the river in their last days. So they say it's a lot different when they're not doing that, but sounds good. No hunting, though.
No, I had some friends over tonight that shot 2 moose today, a bull and a cow. So and it's the first day of the moose hunting season. So they were pretty happy, and it was quite close to the roads as well. So they didn't have any problems getting these. I don't know, 1,200 pound animals to the cars, so they were really happy.
That's a lot of food too. You'd have to buy extra freezers for that. I mean,
absolutely, they're huge animals. So you can feed a family. You can feed several families throughout the winter on 4 of those. So absolutely, that's great eating.
That sounds great, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a treat for you tonight. Those of you who have been around the show for a while, you'll know the voice of Hadi Ellis, who will be with us at 1:15. Looking forward to that. We hope if you have any questions that you don't hesitate to call in. I know there's a lot of people in the chat room waiting to hear my take on the Pittsburgh Steelers and the NFL. I'm not going to cover that in this hour. If you stick around and go to the Wayne Dupree show, there's going to be probably a whole hour on it. On there, I got New York Times people chasing me down, trying to get me to give my opinion on the thing. But I'm going to give my opinion, but it's going to be on the Wayne Dupree show. I didn't want to take too much time on this show. I didn't want to take too much time on that. Now, there are several things going on. Norway, we have a American Revival going on tonight with Steve Bannon, who incidentally surprised me this morning and was on Breitbart News Daily, where I first heard the man. And that was a relief, boy. I'll tell you, to hear him on there again. But you've got Steve Bannon, Chris Robinson, I think that's his name, Robertson, Nigel Farage. They're all in there to push Judge Roy Moore over the top, and I think they're going to do that. We're really excited for tomorrow's election, Norway. This is something that's going to change things up, or it is going to reveal how corrupt the Republican Party is, if in fact Luther Strange should win.
Yeah, well, it's. I must admit, I haven't paid very much attention to what's been going on with the election the past few days.
I can imagine.
I think I got a couple of hundred messages in Twitter. I haven't had time to read yet, but indeed, with big guns like this, they're gonna. I am absolutely convinced they're going to shift some masses. I mean, just listening to Nigel Farage, it's the royal fireworks himself. I mean, it's fantastic.
It is excellent, and really, it's sad and actually rather, I don't want to say stupid, because they're fighting for their lives in the establishment. But there was an analysis done, and the GOP establishment is wasting $235,000 a day on the Alabama Senate primary against a Republican, and totally ignoring the Democrats. And that's just not a recipe for success. I mean, they're trying to buy Sessions' economic nationalist seat for corporatist strange. And I mean, you had the president coming out the other day, and that was a sad sight. I mean, you could tell his heart was definitely not in it. He was paying back a debt that he thought he had, and more people in Washington, actually more people in the country, ought to have a little sense of that loyalty that he has. It was on full display during Trump's rally. So we'll see how that's gonna pan out. I think that Moore has a pretty good chance of winning. He's not cocky in any way. He's still nervous, as well he should be, when you have these forces arrayed against him. But I think that's going to make an impact when this guy gets to the Senate. You're going to see it quickly, I believe, and all the floodlights will be on him. So I'm sure he knows that first impressions are the strongest, and hopefully that all works out and he does the right thing. But we'll see that if that happens or not.
But it's absolutely unbelievable that the Republicans are using that much money on beating one of their own. I mean, it's I think it's an indication of where the Republican Party has ended up, like we've talked about on so many shows before.
I do too, and it doesn't make any sense, but it does let you know who the guy is, or I mean, what the party is, and it's a shame. I think we've known it for a while, but it's a crying shame. It really is. And we're going to try to get our guest on the line here. See if this works. Mr. Elise, how are you?
Good, thank you very much. Nice to hear you back.
Yeah, nice to hear your voice as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Hadi Ellis on the line, and I'm just going to read from a description that you gave, sir. I am a Kurd from Turkey, sociologist doing independent research on my own, living in Toronto, Canada. My sociology degree was not recognized in Canada, and that forced me to seek different skills-related jobs than in academia. 3 interviews I made with the BBC World News Service this year, and that was a couple years ago. 2 of them in February 2016, and a 3rd one in August 2016. Bring us up to date, sir. What's going on with you?
Today is a very historical day. The Kurdish region in Iraq made a referendum very successfully, and I believe around 76% of people voted in favor of independence, the Kurds separating from Iraq.
Wow, that's outstanding.
Yes, they are one of the 2 U.S. allies besides the Syrian Kurds and Kurds in Turkey, with USA, our Marines, and fighting against Islamist terrorism, especially the ISIS.
That's absolutely true. And I'd like to talk for a little bit. The Gatestone Institute came out with a piece the other day, and it was titled "American Islamists Turn to Ankara." And it basically talked about that the Turkish regime is now a crucial component of the global Islamist threat. For the past few years, the International Muslim Brotherhood has found a welcoming home in Ankara in the face of opposition from Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates. Consequently, U.S. Islamist organizations have also turned to the Turkish regime for collaboration and support. On September 18th, a Washington, D.C. based organization, the Turkish American National Steering Committee, TASC, hosted an event in New York City with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. U.S.-based Muslim Brotherhood supporters have a busy week coming up, the Middle East analyst Eric Traeger noted. They're hanging with Erdogan on Monday, protesting Sisi on Wednesday. Is this new, or is this something that has just been under our radar?
The Islamist movements of Turkey, and the Turkish ones cooperating with the Arabs and Pakistanis and Indians. I mean, as a Kurd, from following Turkish politics, we know, but Americans, especially the media, is not very focused. What is the real face of Turkey? So we can see the jump from point A to point B, then suddenly we say, oh, what's going on in Turkey? But actually there was a process started in the mid-1980s that the Turkish government at that time wanted to use Islam against Kurdish nationalism to put Kurds under Islamic one nation banner so they will not ask for a separate ethnic state.
Well, that sounds...
Because Turkey was denying Kurds. When you say we are all Muslim and we are all one Muslim nation, like the nation of Islam, then, you don't have to ask for a separate state. You will live under Sharia law and you will live under Islamic Republic. So when you put your Islamic identity in front of everything, you are a Muslim first, so your Kurdishness against the Turkishness doesn't make any sense. But for the Turks, they are Turks and Muslim, but for the Kurds, they are only Muslim. They say, forget your Kurdishness because that one we don't care.
So are all the Kurds in Turkey, are they all Muslim?
I mean, officially, yes. A guy like me, officially Muslim, but, I am living outside Turkey for so long, and I'm not a religious person. I put my heart out of politics as a living person, that my ethnic identity as a Kurd first. Because when you believe God created you with an ID. You're born as an American, then God chose you to be an American. When you're born as a Kurd, then God chose you to born as a Kurd. And being Muslim, because you have your own mind to search, to find the truth, to make your mind and your heart in harmony. There are many people, they are changing religions. They are Muslim, they become Buddhist. They are Buddhist, they become Christian. They are Christian, they become, atheist. So it's your personal search to say that what I believe as a faith. You might believe in God, but you don't go to church. You might believe in God, you don't go to mosque. You might believe in God, you don't go to synagogue. But when they ask you something, you say, I like to pray, especially when you see a sad situation, like someone passed away. Even an atheist person, I know, he will go to church and say, let me pray for his soul to be in peace in the afterlife.
That's actually me.
So this is, but in Turkey, with Muslim Brotherhood and many other political movements, they are using these small little points to grab you somewhere and put you in a discussion and force you, brainwash you to become a radical Muslim.
Now, Hadi, I also have my co-host, and he's calling from his studio is in Norway. So it's about 2 o'clock in the morning there. But Norway, do you have any questions for Mr. Elise before I go on?
Oh yes, it's a great honor, Mr. Hadi Elise, and a privilege to have you on this show. You are a sociologist and Kurdish. So my first question is, why is the Kurdish people historically so pro-secular, pro-Israel, pro-West, and pro-democracy?
The Kurdistan as a region has been on the crossroads from east to west, from south to north. Kurds were Zoroastrians in early days and ancient times. Then they changed to some others that today we know there are Jewish Kurds, there are Christian Kurds, there are Yazidi Kurds, there are Shabaki Kurds, and some other small, unknown, but still practiced religions in Kurdistan, like Hakkaism, the Brotherhood. And today, the three main religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, they settled in Kurdistan for some time, and we still carry those traditions from the past. Like I will explain something from my childhood, that we were colored eggs and we were hiding them. In the late March, early April, and then in 1966, we moved to Germany, and I went to grade 1 and grade 2. And then I saw all my German friends are doing the same thing, coloring their eggs and hiding. And then fine, and you are happy. Then I asked my mom, I said, these guys are German, but they are doing the same thing that we were doing in the village. Then my mom said, we were Christians many, many centuries ago. We learned this holiday. Now we are not Christian anymore, but we kept the holiday. So we still celebrate Easter in some ways that we don't know it is Easter anymore. But at the time comes, like late March, early April, we remember the holiday and we celebrate. But because there is no churches in the village, there is no people that they know the knowledge of Christianity, that they can explain this tradition was left from many, many centuries ago. But many Kurds like me, they go to outside Kurdistan, to USA, Australia, Norway, and then they interact with other ethnic groups, with other faiths, with other cultures, and they realize we have lots of common values. Because Kurdistan had this experience with Judaism, Christianity, the Kurds become much more tolerant, open-minded to the non-Kurdish things. And the Kurdish Israelis or Kurdish Jews, they are around 250,000 in Israel, and they are very frequent visitors of Kurdistan to remember from 1948 and earlier, to remember their father and grandfather village and other places. So they are visiting back, and they talk to the local people, and they say, are there any elderly people? I like to ask about this gentleman, about that. So they are doing a search about their
heritage.
Heritage.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. You mentioned the Kurdish referendum in Iraq today, and I have a little question which pertains to my previous question, which is I'm quite interested in the secular movement, so to speak, within the Kurdish societies, and do you think if we see a startup of a Kurdish nation, a Kurdistan, do you think that nation building will be based on secular principles or religious principles?
Secular principles. Even at the Ottoman times, the Kurdish religious groups, the Alawites, were under the secular rulers, the Kurdish kingdomships or Kurdish principalities. There were 16 of them in the Ottoman Empire and 9 of them on the Persian Empire. We are talking about 150 years ago and earlier.
Now, I'd like to get to...
The Kurdish religious elite were never governing power in Kurdistan. So they did not impose religious law, religious lifestyle to the Kurds. We've been like before the French introduced racism, secularism to the modern Turkey, the Kurds were already secular.
412-567-1460, 567-1460. If you'd like to ask Hadi Alice a question, I'd like to go back just a minute to this TASI event and throw a couple names out there and see if you're familiar with them, and maybe you could shed a little light. Organizers of this TASI event included Ahmed Shaheda, a lobbyist for the Muslim Brotherhood who has worked for the Islamic Relief and Muslim American Society, two prominent Islamist groups designated as terrorist organizations by the United Arab Emirates in 2014. Last year, following Turkish claims of an attempted coup, we all remember that, against the regime, a TASI rally in support of Erdogan outside the White House included Shahada and a number of prominent American Islamist leaders, such as Nihad Awad, the executive director of the terror link CARE. As the Investigative Project on Terrorism notes, Erdogan's Justice and Development Party subsequently sent a delegation to the United States to hold meetings with senior CARE officials. Since then, Awad has continued to meet with representatives of the Turkish regime. Do any of those names ring a bell?
They are very familiar names. You will see these names in many of the articles on Islam and politics and the Muslim Brotherhood. And they are frequent visitors of Turkey too. And since 2011, Turkey had hosted many international Islamic conferences. Last year they had two, and it was about bringing back the caliphate. And those guys bringing back the caliphate movement are in the same ideology of ISIS, Al-Qaeda branches. Al-Qaeda and ISIS are same, but they have little differences in time. And Al-Qaeda, when started in 9/11 and before, they were in Afghanistan with Taliban. They wanted to have a place that they can rule, to have a territorial base, but didn't work out. And then ISIS started in Syria and Iraq. That's the name. But in Syria and Iraq, there are states. There is Syrian state and Iraqi state. So ISIS went to the Kurdish territories because there were no Kurdish states. And if ISIS take over the Kurdish land in Syria and Kurdish land in Iraq, because there were no states, they said, we are the state. So they declared their statehood on the Kurdish territories, and then they declared their caliphate because they want to have an Islamic regime based on Sharia law and the Islamic Republic. Almost 250,000 people joined them.
A little bit back to the Kurdish referendum in Iraq today, because we've seen something really strange, namely that the Turkish government and Iran have joined forces in order to both stop the referendum in itself, but also any nation-building project in the region. And we know that Iran aspires to build this so-called crescent throughout the Middle East, up through Syria, Lebanon, and as a matter of fact, practically encircling Israel, while also capping off Saudi Arabia. Could you comment a little bit on these tensions?
Now, the Persians and the Turks and the Arabs all have the claim to the caliphate. Arabs started with the Prophet Muhammad, and then when his grandchildren got killed during the internal fight for caliphate, and they killed in the city called Karbala in Iraq, they were on their way to Iran. And now Iran has the bloodline of those people, and they claim that the caliphate should be rightfully theirs. But then around 13th century, the Turkish Ottoman Empire, or 14th century, they conquered Mecca and Medina, today's Arabia, and they brought the caliphate to the Istanbul, the capital city of the Ottoman Empire. And until 1919, the caliphate was in Istanbul. In 1922, Atatürk, the founder of the modern Turkey, made a law to cancel the caliphate. He abolished the caliphate. Now the modern Turkish Islamist government, Erdogan and his party, AKP, they want to bring the caliphate back to the Turks.
It's interesting that you mentioned this because Erdogan's ruling party, AKP, was, like you said, originated in the Islamic movement. But they were actually banned in 1998, and during its more than 10-year reign, the AKP had strengthened Islam within Turkey. Could you say a little bit about why this movement were banned in 1998 and now is in a power position where they are practically impossible to attack?
Yeah, AKP was not banned. There was a ban on Erdogan himself. He read a very Islamic poem by a very well-known Islamic poet. And then at that time, the Turkish government was still secular, controlled by the Social Democrats and the pro-Atatürkist or pro-Kemalist people. So the Constitutional Court of Turkey judge Erdogan, and they give him 8 months prison term for Islam, citing this poem with creating hatred and enmity between people. They charge him with the law of discrimination. And then after that, Erdogan come back to the politics around 2002, when his party elected as a government. And one of his friends was the prime minister for a year and a half. And then they made a law to abolish the restrictions on Erdogan. And then he made a comeback as a president of the AKP. And president of the AKP position made him the prime minister.
Exactly. Sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
What I was referring to was the Islamic movements were banned in '98, if I remember correctly. But we see now that Erdogan is making, actually, in my opinion, making a lot of the same moves we saw Hitler make during the Weimar Republic in the pre-Nazi Germany, and I find it quite troubling, especially Diyanet. I don't know if you could enlighten us with what Diyanet is, because we've seen Diyanet grow in America as well as in Europe.
Now, in your previous question about Iran and Turkey threatening Iraqi Kurds not to recognize their referendum and independence, and also threatening with invasion militarily to block this movement. Now, the Turkey, Erdogan and AKP government claims that former Ottoman colonies should be ruled again by modern Turkey, which we call neo-Ottomanism. And also Iran, as you mentioned, with the Shia crescent, they want to go over Kurdistan to the Syria and Lebanon, create a Shia crescent. And so they are competing on Kurdistan, directly and indirectly.
And I'll tell you, there's the story about the referendum in Newsweek is actually titled "Iran and Turkey Prepare for War in Iraq, Talk Peace with Russia in Syria." This looks like some gamesmanship that's going on, but those are pretty harsh words, even for an obsolete publication like Newsweek, to put that on their headline. It looks like Iran and Turkey have found themselves united of late by their opposition to the Kurdish independence in Iraq. And another thing I found interesting is that something that I didn't even know existed, the Kurdish Regional Government is the organization that organized that referendum.
Yes. Kurdish regional government established in 1993. And it was right after the Anfal campaign and Halabja chemical bombardment on the city of Halabja that the Kurdish refugees were on the mountains border area of Iraq and Turkey, Iraq and Iran. And CNN was showing it every day, and James Baker flew with a helicopter over, and then they said we will create a no-fly zone. After they created no-fly zone, they sent former general or retired General J. Gardner to the capital city of Iraqi Kurdistan, Erbil. He talked with the current president Masoud Barzani and Jalal Talabani, who Talabani became president of Iraq. And then J. Gardner said, I asked these two gentlemen to declare independence. And they both said, not now. From 1993 to 2017, except the ISIS attack on Shingal region, Yazidis, and in Kobani city in Syrian Kurdistan, nothing changed in Kurdistan. Everything is still the same. They didn't declare in 1993. They just wasted 30 years, and now they are declaring, independence through referendum.
I'm gonna probably go ahead.
I myself wrote an article in 2004, the Kurdish demand for statehood and end of Iraq, an article, 19 pages, published in the Journal of Social, Political and Economic Studies. I said that Iraqi Kurdistan, after the genocide experience, they have a right to claim statehood. Also, they are a separate nation living on their own land. They have all the capabilities to become a nation state. Besides the genocide experience, they have all the rights to ask for independence.
Well, I'm probably going to surprise you here, Mr. Elise, because we have a contingent of people, of military people, that listen to this program on a regular basis that are either in or very close to the former Turkish capital of Erbil. Believe it or not, we've got people there. Probably, I don't think they listen live. They have to wait for the podcast, but they correspond with us.
I know most of the names that they went to Iraqi Kurdistan. There is a YouTube channel called Americans in Kurdistan. There is maybe a couple hundred videos made by Americans that I am in Kurdistan. I'm here 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 8 years. David Petros used to live in Iraqi Kurdistan. Former Croatian ambassador, U.S. ambassador to Croatia, Peter Galbraith, lived over 10 years in Iraqi Kurdistan, and he is one of the advisors to Mr. Masoud Barzani. There is maybe 100 or more academics, American academics teaching in Iraqi Kurdistan universities. Iraqi Kurdistan has a couple hundred oil companies, gas companies, energy companies. Half of them are American, and their employees and their CEOs and regional managers, directors are there. I can say at least maybe 15 to 20,000 Americans are living in Iraqi Kurdistan.
Well, let me ask you the obvious question. With the change of administrations, we've all been sitting back, not as long as you have, sir, but I can remember starting to look at the Kurds when the Iran hostage crisis happened in 1979. But we've been, a lot of us, been rooting for a Kurdistan. Do you feel that maybe the atmosphere is a little better now, and we might actually get to see this happen in our lifetimes with the change of administration in the United States? Not that that's the only factor, but it could help.
Now, many times the Kurdish people uprise, and the U.S. governments were Democrats. And unfortunately, the Democrats were not very friendly to the Kurds. They were pro-Turkey, and they were pro-Arabs, especially pro-Saudi Arabia.
Imagine that.
And most of those uprisings, rioting or revolutionary situations, we lost the opportunity to get to the victory. But when Donald Trump got elected, and I started following him during his campaign, And I knew he will change U.S. foreign policy to toward Islamic countries, because the changes that come with 9/11, Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, which now second generation created the ISIS, Nusra, and many other groups, that the Kurds being in the center of this struggle in Middle East between Persians, Turks, and Arabs, and they want to bring caliphate, and they all want to go after the Kurdish territories because it's resources rich, especially oil and gas, also many other minerals and mines.
Well,
Then I felt the Trump administration will be naturally, by the consequences and the circumstances, that will be pro-Kurdish. And what happened with the Kobani when the ISIS circled the 500,000 populated city, and the Kurds from Syria and Kurds from Turkey united and fought against ISIS, but they were missing air power. Then
if our listeners have a question for Mr. Hadi Ellis, call the show 412-567-1460.
and I'll tell you, sir, that the chat room is very pro Kurdistan, and they're enjoying what you're saying. Just so I know you're on the phone, you're not watching the chat, but they're prayers for Kurdistan all the way around.
Now, if you follow most of the radical movements, pro-Russia, communist, socialist, radical revolutionary movements from Southeast Asia, Oceania, Latin America, or South America, and then North Africa, you will find many anti-Americans. They will attack American embassies. They will try to kidnap American diplomats. You know, but when you look at the Kurdish struggle, they never attack any Western, especially American institutions, American diplomats, banks, or even think tanks and other places, or burning American flags. You know, you will not find Kurds never did, or hijacking an airplane. It's not very difficult, but Kurds never thought of it. Like that, we will be showing our grievances with terrorism towards other people, that other nations that they are supporting Turkey. Like the U.S. government put PKK, Kurdistan Workers' Party, the party that having an arms struggle against Turkish government
list. Yeah.
since 1984. U.S. government put on a terrorist list, but this political organization never did anything anti-USA.
I got a question in that relation, because the way I see it, it's a huge problem that Turkey is a member of NATO as they are today. They don't have the same strategic role as they did during the Cold War, but also their policies diverge radically from the other NATO countries. And I would really like to see Turkey thrown out of NATO. But do you think that is a possibility? Can we, as ordinary citizens, do something in order to facilitate that? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Unfortunately, NATO is a very specific organization. It has its own constitution. And own constitution does not have a bylaw that the Central Committee of NATO can suspend membership or cancel a membership. If a member wants to unilaterally withdraw, they have right to do so. Unless NATO make an extraordinary Congress and then amend, change one or two of the bylaw, or put a article in a bylaw say that we have a power to suspend membership or cancel, kick out a member from the membership, or create a disciplinary committee for members that they are behaving anti-NATO constitution. But now Turkey bought S-400 air defense system from Russia.
Exactly.
Yeah, these kind of things are the things they're doing. I mean,
this is a major point for NATO, that Turkey does not have NATO air defense system. It has Russian air defense system. This is unacceptable by the NATO constitution. And I hope NATO will make an extraordinary conference or extraordinary congress to meet on this issue and say, Turkey, either you cancel this S-400 Russian air defense system, buying it from Putin government, or you're no longer NATO member.
and this is the reason that I didn't like General Flynn. General Flynn was, in my opinion, he was in bed with Erdogan. I don't know what it is with our senior military leadership, but if you follow Turkey's contributions to NATO after the 1950s, in the 1950s, they assisted us in the Korean War. But then when the Bay of Pigs came and Kennedy gave up the missile systems that were in Turkey, they pretty much lost any value to NATO. And like you said, now they're listing towards Russia, and the at the beginning of the show, talking about the ties with CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood. I agree with you. I think we have to find a way to eject them from NATO, because sooner or later, just with their quest to be king of the hill with the caliphate, maybe some of their neighbors are going to mix it up with them, and I don't think that it's in Europe's interest to defend that, or the United States' NATO's.
I mean, it's still up to NATO as a unique organization with a unique constitution to counter this problem, to face this problem, and find a way to put Turkey back on the path with the Western values and Western tradition, liberal parliamentary regime tradition. Or if you want to be an Islamist regime, Islamic Republic, and you want to rule by Sharia, which is unacceptable by NATO constitution, European Union regulations, and bilateral relations with USA, and we leave Turkey aside and we start having different kind of relations.
And it's going to take more than just wearing a suit to not be to be secular. You can wear the suit and you can look Western, but by God, everything you're doing is headed towards Sharia and the caliphate. Now, we're running out of time. I want to make sure, Hadi, that one of the things that you do, at least you send to me, a lot of prolific writing and things on Twitter. I'd like to get some of the people in my audience to follow you so they could see some. I mean, you really go into depth in this regional political situation, and you've written open letters to the president and things like that. How can people get in touch with you on Twitter?
It's Hadi_Ellis. That's my Twitter address.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead, continue. Sorry.
HADI_ELIS. Now, I occasionally put long threads like Kurdish geopolitics with 62 tweets. And last year I started, but then I said they are all not in chain. So in May 2017, I connected them together. If you go to my pinned to win, it says Kurdish Geopolitics 1. And then when you open the 1, it goes to 2, 3, 4, all the way to the 62. And my first tweet says, in our time, we will see a Kurdish independent state. Either one state or 5 states, according to each part of Kurdistan. We will have many Kurdish states. And all those Kurdish states, if come together, we can have United States of Kurdistan, just like United States of America.
Oh boy, I hope so. Norway, any final comments?
I think it's about time that we give the Kurds all our support to get the Kurdistan. It will be a decisive stabilizing factor in spite of all the propaganda we hear. I am absolutely convinced that it will be a decisive stabilizing factor in the entire region, and at every turn where it's been pivotal to have support in the region for military operations, the Kurds, they've been standing with America and with Europe. So it's about time we give them all the support they need to get their own nation state.
I agree. We've sent them some MRAPs. We've got the Erbil task force standing fast, standing by, 360-degree security. We need to get them some F-16s and some airfields and let them do what they do. Mr. Ellis, thank you very much for coming on the program this evening. I hope you come back again soon.
Anytime. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen,
thank you.
Mr. Hadi Ellis, one of our favorite guests. He comes on here from time to time and educates us every time he's on. I was glad to get him on. We kind of veered a little bit from the program format, but it's my show. I can do that. You know, when it's interesting. I hope some of you guys would have called up. We've had calls in the past, but apparently that's okay. That's all right. Norway, a very, very insightful person. I mean, he comes on here, and we've talked on several different subjects, but I always like when he comes on the show.
Absolutely. I've read several of his articles, and he's very eloquent. He's absolutely a brilliant mind in the way of thinking. He's a great scholar, a great Kurdish scholar, and it was an absolute delight to have him on the show. And I hope you and me, Hutch, we've been putting our heads together to get more guests on the show, and I hope our audience like having these guests and perhaps give us a call and interact with these guests. I mean, it's a brilliant chance to widen our horizons. So my hope and prayer is that our audience will call some more into the show.
Yeah, it's always nice to get some other angles and what other people are thinking of. Now, I think that I think this is a very huge subject in our day. I mean, if you look at the vast landmass that is Kurdistan, I don't have my map up here. I used to have my map sitting right here, but you look across all the countries that Kurdistan is the Kurds are living. If that became a country, Absolutely. It would be bigger than most of the other countries in the Middle East, and this is why they resist it so much.
Yeah. I mean, Kurdistan would take up large swaths of Syria, Iraq, Iran, and Turkey, and is no doubt a big stabilizing factor in that region and in the entire MENA region. I mean, Middle East, North Africa region. Yeah. If we could establish a Kurdistan, and like Mr. Hadi Ellis said here, the Kurds have never attacked Western forces. They have been allies through thick and thin. And I mean, if we could establish a Kurdistan here, it would definitely be a stabilizing factor, because you would split up these maniacal nations like Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Iran, which are fighting over establishing a new caliphate or sultanate, as you were.
And you know, the key to it is Sarah Palin. The key to it is drill, baby, drill. Because the only reason that any of these Middle Eastern countries have any leverage at all with the weak-minded prostitutes in the Republican Party is because of oil money. It's the only reason.
Absolutely.
And I mean, we developed the wells. We drilled the wells. You know, it's something that's so mind-boggling that you have, you know, a segment of the Republican Party and the entire Democrat Party that stands in the way of basically world peace and so much more. And that's all it's about. It's all about money.
Absolutely. And America, just the energy policy of Trump is ingenious. I mean, America just, you need to start drilling, guys, and start digging coal out and become totally energy independent. Start
making steel again. I mean, this is something that goes without saying. And the reason that it doesn't happen is because, man, I hate to say this, but you look at all the idiots that took a knee this weekend. What did they take the knee for? They took the knee for a lie, for something that didn't even happen. For hands up, don't shoot. That's where it all started. You've got people that vote for Bernie Sanders, that would vote to turn this country upside down and just turn somebody upside down, shake all the money out of their wallets. It's unbelievable. We got to smarten up, ladies and gentlemen.
Amen, Hutch.
That's where we're at. That's where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. Norway, how can people get in touch with you? Great show.
Great show. I'm at Norway for Trump on Twitter and Gavin. That's Norway 4 with the number 4. It's been a pleasure co-hosting with you tonight, Hutch, and seeing our delightful chat room, which is really active as usual.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming by. It was another great installment, I should say, of shaping our world. We just went a little different this time. We're going to probably do that from time to time. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. on Facebook, Berg's Eye View on Twitter. Thanks to everyone in the chat room, everybody listening live, to the many of you that download the program or either listen to it on the website. Don't forget to get that app. That app, just you can take the show wherever you go. Thanks for letting us into your life for 1 hour, ladies and gentlemen. The Wayne Dupree program is up next. We're going all NFL tonight, no doubt in my mind. Hey, God bless.
God bless.